And welcome everyone to another recording of the Content Marketing Studio. We're back for another season to help you create better content faster. Today, I am joined by my very special guest, book author, marketing coach, and consultant, Simon Clayton. Simon, welcome to the Content Marketing Studio.
Thank you, Pascal. Welcome so much for your invitation. It's very nice to be here. Thank you.
Not at all. So, this series is all about finding new ways to build your brand online and drive sales for your business. And we're so lucky to have with us the founder of the Marketing Skills Academy, as well as other ventures, which we'll discover in a moment. But today, the reason Simon is with us is because he's the author of a book called The Marketing Masterplan.
So this is the bit where I hold the book up now and I kind of do the grand reveal as well. Yeah, there we are.
Absolutely. And so you should, because we're going to talk about why and how you produced that book. But of course, we're going to go into the details of the book. But the book, there's nothing short of 244 pages of wisdom, worksheets, templates, and charts to help you plan, create, and implement your marketing strategies and grow a profitable business. So where are you at this moment in time, and how are you doing, Simon?
At this moment in time, I am based at home. I have a home office. I'm actually in my conservatory as we speak, but I have a home office, and I've been here now for a good 6-7 months during lockdown and so forth. So this has been my office and my home. In terms of business-wise, I mean, I'm going to say that cliche, it's been a funny old year, and I'm sure everybody can empathize with that. But I do an awful lot of one-to-one coaching and training, as you know. And when lockdown was announced in the UK, that kind of just disappeared within 24 hours. Everything just dropped off. And it was quite a scary time, like I'm sure it's for many businesses, where suddenly your work just stops and you feel you have no control over the situation. Now, thankfully, I also do some lecturing for the local university as well. So there was bits and pieces coming from that. And it went for about a month. And then suddenly I think there was, I suppose, good news stories started to appear that things were getting better. And suddenly my coaching started to come back in again. And I'd say for the last 6 weeks, it's just been crazy, absolutely crazy. Long days, long hours, but I love it, and I'm not complaining. And I keep saying to people, I'm making hay while you can, because no one knows what's ahead. So as it stands at the moment, yeah, I'm very, very busy, but thankful that I've got the work.
No, absolutely. And you're right. I mean, what's been very different for you and I is we normally travel extensively across the north of England and some of the UK.
Absolutely, yes.
And we would be, in person. And certainly to go completely virtual has been, I was always very comfortable with online stuff, but that was maybe 10% of my work.
Yeah, for a long time, the ironic thing is for a long time, I'd want to do a lot more online, and kind of kept putting off and worrying about the technology and would it be done and would people buy my service if that was the case, and kind of got forced once lockdown. You kind of get forced. I've got to go online now. I've got no choice. So the learning curve was much faster. But having
was there
said
a curve?
that,
it was probably 90 degrees.
90% of what I do. Absolutely. And even just the technologies and the tools and investing in some of the kit, but for me, it's been really worth it. And I've actually found that my reach is extended, because obviously now I can speak to anybody in the world. It's not just purely, local or regional. So it's been a great move for my business, totally unplanned, but I'm pleased I did it.
No, you're right. And for me as well, when I reflect about my customers, for example, where I've been promoting the use of online video, as you well know, and things like this, and they've been finding reasons not to go ahead. And suddenly in the space of 2-3 months, they've become like video marketing geniuses,
Yeah, it's true. Well, the need for content and fresh content. And I think also, and we'll probably touch on this a bit today, is authentic content. So, it's not about having a plush TV studio or whatever, a lot of the stuff that we see now is much more accessible. It's people just being honest about their business, present themselves in an honest, authentic kind of way. And anybody can record a video. I'm a big advocate of videos, It's one of the things I encourage on my coaching, that, whoever I coach, you've got to start putting video out there about yourself, presenting your own brand as much as your business. And we can do it with, with these things. So, mobile phone. So for me, it's absolutely. And obviously I know I'm preaching the converted.
That's
a big advocate of that, but yeah, so important.
So we're going to be talking a lot about marketing and approaches, but as a bit of a hook, as a bit of a lead in, I'm very keen to talk to you about book authoring. So there's two reasons behind it. One, which is for my audience, an additional asset that one can build on for brand positioning, for visibility, as well as obviously service design and so on. But also, to be honest with you, I find the whole concept of writing more of a challenge than I'm more of a visual marketer, as you know. So I'm hoping that you, many others I'm going to interview over the next few weeks, going to be a source of inspiration. So maybe I'll take the leap and move into creating a book myself. So can I ask you, Simon, do you remember when you had the idea for the book? What was the spark?
I think that the spark was probably about 2 or 3 years ago, when I realized that to differentiate myself as a coach, you need to have some kind of product in your business, because obviously we're very much about service oriented, and that's what we do. But I needed some kind of product, something that had a start and a finish, something that had a planned approach, so people could see a tangible. Because I think as coaches especially, and I'm sure you feel as well, it's often difficult to get across to people how important strategy is, but also what the end game is, what it's going to look like when you're finished. So I needed some kind of product, some kind of vehicle. And I always wanted to write a book, but like many, I just thought, I can't do that. I'm not a writer. I don't write stuff. I do with the odd blog and that, but as far as I'm concerned, I'm not a writer in the true sense of the word. So it was kind of like, it was a dream, should we say, a dream that I had, that I wanted to do, but realized that within that, there had to be this product within my business.
And how long ago was that? That moment when you went, that's going to be an important part
of my business. About 2 or 3 years ago. Yeah. I mean, just as a quick overview, I've been self-employed 6 years now. And I had a previous business about 10 years ago, but my career has always been in marketing, 20 years, as I call my apprenticeship, working for other businesses in various marketing roles. So 6 years ago, I went self-employed. And at the time, when I first set myself up as an agency. And that was basically, I could build websites, I could create content, you name it, I could do it. When in fact, the reality was I had a network of freelancers behind me who I'd feed the work to, and I'd put a commission or a markup on top. And it soon became very apparent that I became a very busy fool. So I was going out, I was getting all the work in, I was feeding everybody else around me apart from myself. And it was at that point I realized that actually I'm not selling me, I'm just selling a business. I'm just selling a brand that anybody could do. And that was at the point where I thought, right, then I've got to be very much about what I can offer and go back to my roots, which has always been about strategy, creating marketing plans, focusing on who your target audience is, what your proposition is. And that was the kind of changing point. And I think that was the kind of point where I thought, right, then for me to do this, I need some viable product. I need some coaching program, some plan. Now, it just so happened at the time, I'd been approached by an ex-employer of mine who works for an enterprise agency. And they said, we're looking for a marketing coach, someone like yourself, who can go in and talk to business owners, talk to teams, and basically educate them on how to create a strategy and implement that strategy. And over the space of 6 months, I started pulling together various bits and pieces, right? What do people want to know? What do business owners want to know? And I think there's a lot of confusion out there, and there's a lot of hacks and get rich quick, which in reality don't actually work. And I think ultimately you need a plan. That's what you need. And you need that plan written down, and you need to understand that plan, share it with your team. So for me, it's a case of, it's almost like getting bits and pieces together, right? What does this plan look like? And it almost looked a bit like, what's the best way of describing it? Like a bionic man almost. I was building bits and pieces from all over the place. Right, well, we need to talk about that one. And it was a right jamboree of all sorts. But that was the start, the formation of my coaching program, and also the kind of the start of the book as well. So within 6 months, I'd created this plan, this action plan for anybody to pick up and create their marketing strategy. And then out the blue, a good friend of mine said, this would make a great book. I said, no, it's not designed to be a book. It's designed to be a coaching program. And she said, no, I'll be honest with you, this could be a great book. How about I help you edit it a bit? And I said, fine, yeah, fed it into my designer, and that was the birth of the book. So I'm kind of, I could sit here and say, well, I had, a long time I'd planned the book and a long time I'd thought about this. And I went for long walks and wrote lots of notes down. It didn't. It kind of came together by pure accident. It was literally a collection of thoughts, a collection of concepts, a collection of models which I'd created myself, which had thankfully become my product, my tangible coaching product. There's a start and end to it, and then suddenly became the book. And that's how it formulated. That's how it kind of came into being.
Yeah, well, thanks for the story. Because I think, again, it's very unique to you. I've interviewed other book authors who have had different journeys, but what they all had in common, what you have in common, is that good friend who says to you, there's a book in there.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's what I will say to anybody and everybody who's thinking about writing a book. We are our own worst critic, and I'm a great procrastinator. And you'll create things and you'll look back, oh, it's not good enough, and you're constantly kind of berating yourself and putting yourself down, when in fact sometimes that even the smallest bit of information, that even nugget of advice, which you take for granted that everybody knows, people don't know, and people want to learn from that. And I'm sure you've found in yourself when you've been coaching and training, you'll say something like, for example, you need to create customer personas for your target audience, be niche about this. And people look at you and go, oh, that's amazing. I never thought of that before. And you think, gosh, that's the fundamentals. So don't take for granted what you know that you think everybody else knows, because it's not the case. You know what I mean? And I think that was the big thing for me, the procrastination, changing stuff and all that. And I needed somebody to say, right, stop there now. Leave it alone. Move on to something else. Let's get everything down, and then we'll review as a whole. And it works. It works.
Yeah. But you're right. That reminds me of what I would say to my customers sometimes, this idea of, your ordinary is someone else's extraordinary. And that's the hardest thing, I think, for me, my line of work, which is that the simplest thing sometimes, which doesn't really, get me going, or something that I've used for a long time, is something new, novel, and exciting with somebody else.
Absolutely, yeah. And we're in the knowledge game. We're, that whole kind of knowledge sharing, aren't we? That's what we're about. And I think for both of us as well, we've got many years of experience. So we've gone through that kind of trial and tested. Although I'm not going to sit here and say I'm an expert, because I still make mistakes now. I make mistakes every week, but that's the beauty of our journey, isn't it? That's what we're all about. No one knows what's ahead, what's going to be the next fad or whatever, But carrying that experience with you is so important. And as you say, that knowledge and sharing that knowledge and being an encouragement as well is so important.
Yeah. Can I ask about the transition, the transformation, the effort you had to go through to go from the coaching modules and content to the book? What did you have to do? What did you have to change? Was it reasonably easy?
I think I'd love to say it was easy. It wasn't easy. I think what I'm going to say, the word I'd use is logical. I think the first thing I wanted to get in place was I didn't want it to be a continual a regurgitation of what existed already. But on the back of that, I wanted to find the best bits that I found that have worked for me and the businesses I've worked for. And then marry that up with, I suppose, what you could say that the real principles, looking at what the educators talk about. Obviously, working at the university was very useful. Looking at what the academics say, but also those in the business world as well. What's worked for them? What does a strategy actually look like? as I said, the last thing I wanted was it to become cumbersome. It had to be very easy. So I suppose in my mind, it was kind of the outline that I wanted. Kind of 6 steps was always the dream. 6 steps to get from here to here. And the first few steps were about analyzing yourself, analyzing your business, understanding where you are now. And then the final 3 steps about implementing, moving forward. And then how you would review that and how you would know whether you were getting return investments, whether your efforts were bringing in, the results you wanted to. And that was it. And that was for me, start and end, because it's so important. You know yourself, we can speak to many businesses and you can quote them prices for coaching, but a lot of the time they just want to know, right, when does it start and when does it finish? What does it look like? What are you going to teach me? And that's what I wanted. And that was always the framework for the book, start and finish with useful advice. So 6 steps where you would analyze your business, create a marketing strategy, implement it, and then know what you're measuring. And I suppose in essence, it kind of goes around a cycle anyway. But it's a resource that you can just dip in and dive every time you like.
Yeah, because that's the beauty of all those kind of books. You may read from cover to cover, perhaps the first pass, but then you can go back at very specific chapters. And I think the way you've crafted, your modules from your coaching background would have helped that.
Yeah, absolutely. And, the other thing is I want it to be bite-sized. I didn't want it to be too long and hard. If you think about it, for most business owners who don't have an in-house resource as such, to sit there and say, write a marketing plan, it's like business plans, isn't it? We're all told to write a business plan early doors. And one of the things I hear a lot of is a marketing plan like a business plan? Will I write it when I start my business and then does it just sit on the shelf and collect dust? And it's like, well, no, because for me, it's a constant evolution. It's a constant, and we constantly learn things about our business, our market, never more so than ever what we're experiencing at the moment. No month is the same. So we've got to keep educating ourselves and look at that process and testing that process. So yeah, for me, it was bite-sized chunks, something you could do within 10, 15 minutes of your day if you wanted to. If you want to spend longer, that's fine, but didn't want to become laborious where you think, oh my goodness, I'm bored with this now. Because ultimately, that's what your business is all about, promoting, getting that brand out there. So yeah.
Yeah, I would agree with you. I mean, sometimes I said to my customers or trainees, I get it. When, that day one of setting up your business, you were sat in the kitchen with your cup of tea. I'm pretty sure you didn't say to yourself, I just can't wait to do a marketing plan. I'm sure that wasn't what they had in mind.
True. Absolutely true. Yeah. And these are the horizons. And I think sadly, this is one of the things that puts a lot of people off creating any kind of plans. People tend to feel that they've got to sit down and just write it there and then, and they can't leave their desk or they can't leave their kitchen table until they're finished. And that these things take time. You've got to have breaks. I always encourage all my clients to do things in bite-sized chunks. Even if you just say, right, today, all I'm going to do is focus on one of my niche audience. That's all I'm going to do. Once I've done that, I'm going to come away and do something completely. It's so much more important because we get so much out of that if we had to sit down and literally write from start to finish a marketing plan in the same way a business plan. It's just impossible, No,
and I find myself, even when I design training sessions or coaching sessions, if I move away from it a day or two later, I've got a far better idea than I had that morning when I sat down.
Exactly. And we're constantly receiving things. We're constantly, like both of us, we're constantly immersed in what's going on around us. We have to be as coaches and consultants. We're constantly immersed in what's going on around us. We're constantly learning. And then we apply that learning to our training, our coaching. So you've got to give yourself that rest and do those bite-sized chunks. Got to.
One thing I wanted to ask you about the book again, because I'm in a certain admiration for the effort that you've put in, because I've not done it yet, is this idea of which route did you choose, self-publishing or going with a publishing house, and what deliberation you went through?
I went through self-publishing. And I think if I was to be completely honest with you, I've not told anybody else this before, it was more of that kind of, should we say, damage limitation, pride limitation, the worry that if it didn't take off or people didn't buy it, it was just between me and my close people. I think yeah, I'd love to work with a publisher, and who knows, that might be the next step. It just seemed the easier option that I could get this book out there, and if it didn't sell or nothing happened, well, fair enough, I've lost nothing. Not many people know about it. That was the thought process then. Looking back now, yeah, I wish I'd got a because it's been a great success. You know what I mean? And it's I've probably missed an opportunity. So yeah, the self-publishing was good because you control a lot of what happens anyway. You can control the cover price, you control the design, all that kind of, and the content as well. But then on the back of that, I suppose that the disadvantage is that you don't have that guide. You're working blind. It's another big learning curve for yourself. And there's probably things I would have done differently now. I've not had a book launch yet, and it's been 12 months now it's been out there. So everybody keeps saying, you need a book launch. Oh, I'll do it with the second one. So as it stands at the moment, yeah, I think looking forward and whatever happens next with the book or another book, I would seek to get some publisher, support within that.
Sure.
But these days, this is the beauty of self-publishing. You can put anything, anything out there and it works. So
yeah, I mean, for me, the way I actually read the situation, Simon, is that because the book is to be ordered, directly with you, it feels even more personal relationship between you and the book author. So I kind of read it in that way. Just very quickly, so who was part of the book production team? There was you, there was a designer. Was there anybody else involved in supporting you, or any kind of
I had myself, I had a designer, and I had I had myself, a designer, and a copywriter. And if anybody, the copywriter was what I would call the sense checker come putting it all together. So literally I would write copious amounts of notes and scribbles on pads and all that, and I'd just pile it at her and say, right then, and she would then craft it into some kind of English that made sense. And, but that was basically my team. It was, myself, copywriter and a graphic designer. That put it together.
And remind me again, from the moment you started to bring things together to the printed product, how long, how much time passed?
It felt like a long time, but in effect, it was probably 2 or 3 weeks. It went really fast, and only because at that point, I had my copywriter saying, "You're not allowed to look at it anymore because you've done too much with it. Just get it out there now. Just do it." And likewise, my designer saying, "You've got to stop moving things around because we've got to put it." I suppose it was kind of like the people around me saying, "Right, stop procrastinating. Stop kind of moving stuff. Stop messing on with it. It's there. It's done. Do it." And I think, again, that's any advice I would give is that's why you need other people involved within the process, because you do need that sense check. I think if I'd not had those people there, I'd probably be still planning on getting this book done. And, and it'll probably look like several different versions from where we are now as these things happen. So for me, it was literally, I'm saying 3 weeks, it's probably 3 or 4 weeks from it being ready to go to print. And then print was about a week on top of that from when it actually went out there. And then comes the day when it gets delivered in. You get this box and you just look at it and you unwrap the box and you hold it in your hand and it's like, oh my goodness me, it's. And then you kind of sit back and think, right, what do I do now? It's kind of, it's there, it's done, it's. So yeah, it's an amazing feeling, It is. Yeah.
Can I just quickly go back to the roles of the different team members? What else would you say has been the value of the copywriter and designer as part of the team?
I think it's, as I say, it's definitely a sense check, definitely reading through and make sure that things make sense. I think with the designer, actually making graphics, tables, and I mean, you'll see from the book, there's a lot of tables and charts and things to fill in. Just making it understandable, I suppose, is the best way of putting it. As I said for a long, I didn't want it to be something that was complicated, something that you need a high IQ test for just to work out for the form out. I would be so much easier than that. And that's the one thing the designer did to write and tell me exactly what you wanted to achieve with this. What's the end goal? And then he'd go away and just literally create these amazing spreadsheets and everything that goes with it. So definitely for that respect, in terms of the writer, I think also just somebody, thankfully the writer I work with, she's actually in marketing, so she understands the industry, she understands a lot of the concepts we talked about. So even just with her kind of saying, you know, do you think this would work? What's your experience? And just sharing those ideas and those thoughts as well. And obviously, do you think people would get it? Do you think people would understand this? Do you think people could actually implement this? You know, and that in respect as well. So yeah, it's you've got to have a team around you. You've got to. And also just that whole kind of, when you have those low moments or those low times, or when you're feeling like, you know, and that awful feeling of imposter syndrome, which constantly creeps in, you know, this, I don't deserve, this is not me. You just need those people around. Just say, Howie, come on, you know, we've got this far now, you know, we've got to finish, you know, get the finishing line. And that's really important as well.
Yeah, well, thanks very much for that. I really appreciate it. So, well, listen, clearly it didn't put you off because you're talking about a second book potentially.
It's like that rock band. You know, the rock band always say that difficult second album. So that's where I'm at the moment. I've got so much going on in my head, things I'd like to do. And I suppose part of it is just thinking about, right, how do you follow this up? Or do I just stick with what I've got here and do an updated version, if you like, and some more? So yeah, there's thoughts going around there. However, we could be sat here in 2 years' time and you might be saying the same thing. How's the second book coming on? Yeah. Well, I'll be honest with you, I'm still procrastinating, but it's coming together.
I keep sending you copies of that interview to remind you that you talk about a second book.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, you said.
I think also what you're telling us, Simon, and what I'm picking up from this conversation is about self-awareness, about, you know, what works for you. And I can really relate to this idea of, you know, what worked for you was the fact that you had created, I'm going to call them coaching modules, just my words, but and then eventually, you know, almost the fog cleared, and a good friend told you, I think there's a book in there. So I think, you know, it may be that the first book also allowed you to discover your voice as an author, but also your method as a creator.
Yeah, as I said, it was always about the product. What does the tangible coaching program look like? And I think if anything, it gave me that. It gave me that. And, you know, most of the coaching I do now is based on the book. You know, everybody gets a copy of the book when we start. So, you know, and I encourage them to read through after each time we meet and so on. So it's just a much clearer guide. You know, and plus the fact it means I can go out and say, right, then this is now tried and tested and it works. You know, from the people I've worked with, they're getting great results. So it's not just the case, it's just something that's going to sit on a shelf. I always want it to be a living, breathing document, whatever that looks like, you know, something that was, you could go back to and use time and time again. The other thing is that one of the big things I came across at the time was, and it just kind of impressed me, was, is it digital marketing or is it marketing? And I think you know this yourself. For me, marketing, regardless of whether it's a website or whether it's a press ad or a TV, whatever it is, for me, that's marketing. And I know there are people who kind of think that digital marketing is separate to marketing. For me, it's the same kind of thing. It's just a different channel, a different set of tools. And because of that, you know, again, this whole plan can work whether you're thinking, right, then I need a traditional kind of marketing plan because that's the way my audience consumes it, or I need something on a more digital. It works across both areas. It's not tied down to one specific area. It is just literally how you create a strategic marketing plan based on your audience, based on what you do, and based on who you want to be seen by.
And that's why I've always liked, you know, your work, and also, for example, the LinkedIn post. You know, I'm a big fan of the post you put on LinkedIn. I might ask you actually about the tactic, but it was clear to me because, you know, ultimately we work in similar circles and do something very similar, but we've chosen very, very different hooks and approaches, and there's room for everybody out there. But it was clear to me from the get-go, this is the go-to guy for strategies. And sometime when I had, you know, the chance to share the virtual or physical stage with you, and I could see from the chart, I could see from the systems that you absolutely love that. So I suppose I can't let you go just yet, and I can't have the author of the, you know, Marketing Masterplan without asking you for your advice about all of us who we might need to start to think about our strategies moving forward and dealing with, you know, what we're going through at this moment in time as a society and as businesses. Do you have some tips to feel just energized to go through the planning process for our businesses?
Yeah, Okay. I mean, the first thing I said to everybody is don't panic. I think we feel a lot of pressure, and I see that especially at the moment. There's a lot of pressure on a lot of businesses to still keep up with their game, still be seen, and it's a funny time. I strongly believe we're in a period of what we call empathetic marketing. So we can't go out pushing the sales as balls as we've probably been in the past. It's not about that now. It's more about understanding our market, having a much deeper understanding, developing a much closer relationship with our target audience, and then providing solutions which add value. Now, I know these are a lot of words, but I think that it's really important to keep showing up. One of the things I say to smaller business at the moment, that when we have a downturn in the market, whether that's a recession or something we're experiencing at the moment, you tend to find that the bigger organizations take fright first, and they cull their marketing, or they stop what they're doing, or they lower their budgets. It's a brilliant time as a smaller business to get yourself out there and get seen. There are new opportunities which for a long time the bigger organizations, the bigger brands were taking. That's not there at the moment. So in terms of the small business, get yourself out there, get yourself seen and heard, develop those relationships with your customers. Even if it's stuff like sending out, surveys or, one-to-one video calls, just to get an understanding, how are you finding at the moment? How can we help and not push those sales messages? In terms of creating our content, I always talk about the 5 E's. So that's basically think about content that engages. Yeah, engaging content. And when I talk about engaging, remember that we consume media in a different way. Some of us love watching blogs, reading blogs and watching videos. Some of us enjoy reading white papers. Some of us enjoy looking at video images. Whatever it is, we all consume content in a different way. Don't create just one type of content for the whole of your audience. Think of different ways you can do that. Secondly, educate. So think about when you are creating that content, how can you educate your market? Is there anything you can demonstrate to them? Is it a case of showing them specifications in an infographic form? Next, empathize, really important. Obviously, I've talked about this. Empathize with their problem, their situation, their scenario. Entertain. The best content entertains. We know this. And there is a thin line between being comical and coming across as being stupid. So always test market first of all. What I always say is, if you're going to do something that's funny, that you're going to put there funny, ask your colleagues or don't ask your friends, because they'll always say, oh, it looks great, Test market first before you put it out there. But yeah, make sure you entertain. And finally, the finally is encourage. Encourage dialogue, encourage interaction. It's great creating all this content, but think about the action afterwards. What do you want people to do? Sign up for your newsletter, like and share what you put out there. Think about that action. And for those, that they are the 5 E's that I talk about a lot at the moment in terms of content and how we market our business.
Yeah, you do, because obviously I picked that up in one of your recent LinkedIn posts. So to begin with, thank you for the reminders. Really, really appreciate that, and the way in which you moved on to, because I think people have heard recently, the last few months, you need to have a deep understanding, you need to engage more, but they're not really sure what that means. I think the 5 E is going to be a great reminder, which means that essentially what you're telling me is not what I've seen so far happening in my inbox, where I now get 4 or 5 emails a week from the same company, where before I never heard of them before.
Yeah, absolutely. And I experience a lot on social media, especially LinkedIn, and I'm sure we've all experienced this, where we get a personalized, request from somebody to connect with us. It's usually a very, very cleverly crafted message, how much they like our work, what we do, and so forth. So you accept that connection, and then usually within 12 hours, you get this sales message that comes back, and you think, oh my goodness, this is about relationships more than ever at the moment. It's about relationships, and develop a relationship and talk to me as a human, not as a prospect. Talk to me as a human, because I am more inclined, if we can build that relationship and I feel that we're on a level, I'm more than open for you then to start talking about your products and services and, and how we can work together. But yeah, for me, that whole kind of that cold email, that, unempathetic social media post, whatever it is, it just doesn't work. And I think we, as consumers, we've educated ourselves to be very wary of those kind of messages now. We have become a lot more aware of when we see that on our inboxes. It's like, I'm just not even interested. Even just looking at the headers that we see in there, oh my goodness, they're going to try and sell to us. Bang, disappear. We've got to build those relationships up. And I say this to everybody, trust me, if you get it right and you build that relationship, people buy from you all day long and they'll stay loyal. And the saying that 5 people who have a great experience tell their friends and family, 10 people have an awful experience, tell the world. So it's kind of, don't lose sight of that. Keep pleasing your audience, keep pleasing your audience, and keep showing up.
Yeah, and keep showing up. I think you're absolutely right. And there's been some wonderful examples in addition to poorer ones. And sometimes I think it's more clumsiness than malice. But all the time, there's some brands that should know much, much better, Simon. And I tell you not, kid you not, where I spent the whole weekend literally unsubscribing and deleting companies that in the past had behaved okay, but because of panic, as you mentioned a moment ago, frankly, the way they're going about it is really quite unpleasant. I'm like, listen, you can't email me 5 times a week, when in the past it was once a fortnight.
Yeah, I mean, how do you grow a relationship? How do you understand what your needs are if all we're doing is bombarding you with messages? And again, that kind of ties in with the whole meaning of creating a strategy, pre-planning what you want to do, pre-planning what those messages are, and thinking to yourself, right then, if somebody comes back and asks a question, how can I go back in a human form and answer that question? How could we go, rather than just, right, I'm going to follow up with another message and follow up with another message. It's got to be thought through. And I suppose more than ever now, that's where strategy is so much more important as well, and developing that understanding of your audience. But yeah, I'm totally with you. I've gone through that process as well of just clearing my inbox. And as you say, these are organizations and brands that for a long time you were probably quite loyal to. You probably felt as if that they had a connection with you, and suddenly overnight they've just got that threat, that overdrive, that fear. We're not doing enough. The numbers aren't racking up. Let's quickly just bombard people with offers, and totally pointless.
Absolutely. So I wanted to ask you one more question, then we'll have to wrap it up with a fun quiz, as I mentioned to you offline. So
not a problem.
Your LinkedIn post, I really like them. They come across to me as almost full-on blog articles. You managed to squeeze every single character allowed to you on the LinkedIn post. I wanted to kind of ask, was it something that grew over time? Was it a tactic that you knew about? Is it because, like me, you're very disappointed with LinkedIn articles in general?
I ticked my box to all of you. You're absolutely spot on. I think, first of all, what I would say is that LinkedIn is a brilliant platform. It's my biggest referrer. And obviously, having the likes of Microsoft behind you, you can see that they're doing so much work on the platform, which is brilliant. The downside of that is that there are certain things on there that you really wish just operate better. So, for example, you've said LinkedIn articles. Yeah, for me, obviously, it gives me the opportunity to write so much more and put so much more into it. However, engagement is so poor at the moment on LinkedIn articles, which is a real shame. And likewise, LinkedIn groups, what an opportunity to network. It works on Facebook. Why can't it work on LinkedIn? So yeah, in that respect, they're the negatives, but I don't like negatives. The positives for me is great platform. It does give you the opportunity to kind of sell your personal brand. I'd love to say, it just happened overnight and I just got it, but it didn't. It took a long time to understand what the algorithm likes, that awful word algorithm, and what my community wanted to read and wanted to hear. And it is about giving value, and through that, if you give enough value, you do educate your audience on what you do, you know what I mean? And that's for me, I'm more happy to help anybody with what they want to do with their marketing, more happy to do that. And I always say that I would never give any advice unless I've experienced it myself. So that's, and that's part of my authenticity as my personal brand. But yeah, for me, LinkedIn is very much about sharing that information, educating your audience on what you do, giving those useful tips, how-to guides, and keeping it human. And that's another thing that we've found, especially at the moment. The more human you are online, the more engagement you're going to get. And I think, looking back on my post 12 months ago, they've probably got a lot more human. There's times when I'm being completely honest on there. And those kind of posts get the engagement, and just sharing the good stuff, I suppose, as what you do. It's.
No, excellent. Well, listen, thank you so much for your time today, Simon. It's been an absolute pleasure. We've looked at book authoring. We've got a crash course
Thank
in
you
the
for the
5 Ds.
opportunity.
No, you're more than welcome. And I'm sure people will learn a lot from this session. But before you go, I've got a few more questions for you, if you'll allow me. So
Okay.
a bit of fun, as they say on TV.
Okay, go for it.
If you were to have a Zoom call with a famous person, be it from the world of science, education, business, or even entertainment, who would be your special guest on that Zoom call?
Oh my goodness me, who would it be? Gosh, now you've got me. Okay, it's that kind of dinner party question, isn't it? If you're going to a dinner party, who would you want to go? Oh my goodness me, that is a good one. I suppose I'm a huge fan of Andy Warhol and his art. So I would love to have a conversation with Andy Warhol and just find out what was going on in his head. Likewise, John Lennon. Can I have a few? Is that all right?
Yeah,
John Lennon.
You're the guest. You'll add anything.
Thank you. I'd love to have a conversation with Michelle Obama, because I think for me, she is the pure essence of what a personal brand is all about. She's power, she was for a long time seen as the number 2 to the most powerful man in the world. So Michelle Obama. Gosh, I'd go on. I give you loads. I'm a big fan of Morrissey, but I'm not sure I'd ever want to meet him. Let's stick with those. And Jesus Christ. I know that sounds a really, really kind of cliched answer, and I'm sure many people are laughing now, but for me, I do have a faith, and I wouldn't mind a conversation with Jesus Christ.
I bet, yeah. Be very interesting. Well done, super. Listen, you're allowed to have an online concert, private concert via Facebook Live for you and your family. So, which band or artist would play for you and your family?
Good question. There's so many. I'm a massive Depeche Mode fan.
Right, interesting.
Depeche Mode, the Smiths, the Beatles. Gosh, there's so many. It's endless. It varies month to month. If you ask me this question this time next month, I'm guaranteed it'll be something completely different. George Michael.
Fine
New
selection.
Order. Yeah, the list is endless. That's I feel as if I need to include more. There's so many that I hope they don't see this.
That's all right.
That will be me.
What I'm going to do, Simon, I'm going to put some extracts on the socials, just in case. Obviously, they're watching and listening. You never know.
Thank you.
Next question for you. During this online concert, you are allowed to order some food for you and your family. So what food would you order to watch the concert?
Gosh, I like Chinese food. I do like Chinese, and I cook as well. So I cook Chinese.
Right.
And I also like Italian meats and cheeses and that kind of thing. So I think that would be, And then to finish off with a nice Neapolitan ice cream would be heaven.
Would be, yes. I hope you're going to invite me for that.
I think that's giving too much away now. That's all you're going to get.
Next question. If you could have your own radio show, what would you talk about, and who would be your co-host?
Wow. Okay. My own regular show. Definitely kind of strategy, marketing, business planning, technology, gadgets. That would be the kind of the theme, if you like. Mm-hmm. And again, just to break all the rules, I would say that I would prefer to have something every week. So I think Seth Godin's brilliant. Neil Patel, I'm a huge fan of.
Nice, yeah.
Sarah Porterhouse is a big fan. yourself. For me, I couldn't have a cohort. I think I'd have to have a different person every week, depending on what we talked about.
Or you could have
cheated there. Does that not?
No, that's fine. Typical marketing guy not answering the question anyway. But so you could do like Steve Wright in the afternoon.
I think that's what I would do.
Yeah, it could be like a Steve Wright in the afternoon on BBC Radio 2. You have different segments. I prefer to have
somebody. Yes, absolutely. Yes, that's what I want to go for. Yeah.
Last question for you. Be pleased to know, when this is behind us and we can move and travel more freely, where would you like to take you and your family for a holiday?
In terms of my dream, if money was no object, in terms of the dream places, I'd love to go to Russia. Mm-hmm. And I would love to go to Japan. I love France. You'd be pleased to know. And Italy as well. So for me, they're the kind of 4 places. On Barcelona. I've kind of ticked every box out. I think I've just gone around the world. But yeah, that's. I think in terms of, they talk about that kind of holiday experience, that would have to be Russia and Japan. That's the place where I'd like to go, just to experience 2 different cultures completely. If you're talking about going to kind of relax, a bit of sightseeing, nice food, it would have to be France, Italy, and I suppose Spain, Barcelona.
Thank you so much, Simon. It's been really, really pleasant to go through this fun quiz, but also the whole conversation. For our viewers and listeners, if they have more questions about the Marketing Master Plan and in your services in general, where can they go on the interweb to know more about Simon Clayton?
Okay, www.marketingskillsacademy.co.uk. If you also type into Google www.simonclayton.co.uk, it'll take you to the same destination.
Thank you so much. To our viewers and listeners, I hope you've enjoyed this conversation with Simon Clayton, founder of the Marketing Skills Academy and author of the Marketing Master Plan. Until next time, go out there and make sure your content is better and faster. Bye for now.